All right, Thursday, which means we are closing out this week's topic, strategy, heuristics, cognitive biases. So on Tuesday, we gave a little bit of an introduction, sort of the glossary of heuristics and cognitive biases. Yesterday, we just gave a real quick example in the marketing context, how these heuristics and biases might show up in a commercial setting and how you can train yourself to reduce the impact of these heuristics and cognitive biases. And so today, closing it out, taking a look at two of the examples from yesterday, two of the articles, Forbes's 3 cognitive biases undermining executives, and HBR's How to Make Rational Decisions in the Face of Uncertainty. So going into the real nuts and bolts corporate and business strategy. And so Forbes gives us 3 biases: overconfidence, confirmation, and groupthink, or as they put it, herding. And we looked at a couple of these on Tuesday. Overconfidence bias, something that gets in the way of executives. We've been successful this far, therefore, it must have been my decision making. So we're just going to keep going with what I'm doing. And so confirmation and bias and groupthink, you can see how those feed into one another. Overconfidence. So staff just says, well, the boss has been right before, the team leader's been right before, so we're just going to go with it. Groupthink, confirmation bias. If you're coming in as a leader and you are just laying down directives, you're creating that yes man culture. Well, you're feeding into that confirmation bias. You're helping people give you the answers that you want to hear. Is this the right direction? Well, he seems really confident, so yeah, let's just go along with it. So you can see how this creates a cultural impact as well. Overconfidence by an executive, not asking for that input that's going to run contrary to your assumptions, not having someone play devil's advocate, feeding into confirmation bias. Everybody's focused on one particular issue, one particular strategy. Great, now we have groupthink. So, not challenging yourself internally, feeding into that overconfidence, not allowing or inviting those external challenges. That's where we get confirmation bias and groupthink. Obviously, that's going to lead us to a particular strategy, but like we've talked about, may not be the best one. There may be some blind spots that you're missing. And so, don't let that bleed into the culture, because then it will impact future strategies and future decision making. You wind up doubling down on bad ideas because you've committed. You're all in. All right, well, we can't change now. Yes, you can. You just have to say, we're gonna pivot, we're gonna shift. And so, again, comes back to creating that pause, creating that space between discussion and decision. So as a leader, maybe come with questions instead of directives. What should our new strategy look like? Or what should we do to modify our strategy based on new learning, new awareness that we've created? So going into HBR, that's going to look a little bit more, not so much at the general issues that can face your strategy, but this is going to look at the data. And they come out with salience bias as their lead. And I would probably roll this into information overload, but it does make a slightly different point insofar as with salience bias, you're going to give extra weight to new information. And so in the context of information overload, in the context of salience bias, and even here we could roll in availability bias, because again, that recent information is now causing you to shift, causing you to rethink, causing you to hesitate. So how do we create that pause? Well, when we're looking at data, before you dive into the data, identify what are the signals, not noise, those real important signals. What information is going to be most likely to contain those signals? And let's focus on that. Fundamentally, what is driving our market, our niche? And let's focus on those fundamentals, those signals, so that we can avoid that noise. And in that HBR article, they will talk about how different data can present different heuristics and can trigger different cognitive biases. So it's just another thing to, again, be aware of. What is this data really saying? What is the source of this data? Is it framed contextually in any way that, like marketing, might be trying to shift my beliefs in a particular direction. So we've talked about working backwards from that vision of your company, your professional self. It's no different in a strategic context as well. What is the ultimate goal? Where are we trying to go? What are we trying to accomplish? And now working backwards. What do we have? What do we need? What is the gap between here and there? And that will help you filter out a lot of this noise, potentially, focusing on those signals. Let's work incrementally. What do we need at each step? And again, all of this goes to creating that pause between discussion and decision so that we can vet our ideas. We can test our assumptions and our hypotheses objectively, subjectively, whatever you need to do to make that test, to create that pause, working backwards from that goal. And the last tip that I will leave you with is, as a leader, as I said earlier, come with questions, open-ended questions. Not, is this right or wrong? We don't want yes or no. We want thought-provoking questions. Who, what, where, when, why, and how. Think about those questions. And if necessary, break the meetings up. Introduce the topic in meeting number 1 and set a timeline. Say, great, we're going to meet again in 3 days, 5 days, 7 days, whatever it is. And I want everyone to come with particular ideas. Poke holes in particular ideas. Play that devil's advocate. So breaking up meetings can be another great way to create that pause. When we're talking about strategy, we have to have a deadline. But in between now and that deadline gives us lots of opportunity to really do our homework, to test our ideas, to test our assumptions, to try to look if we're falling into these cognitive bias traps. So, really quick recap. In the executive context, you've got many biases that can present themselves. But do what you can on the front end when you're looking at strategy. Avoid relying on past decisions because they may not be relevant here. Avoid setting up meetings and setting up teams and setting up confirmation bias within those interactions. Similarly, groupthink. How do we combat these on the front end? So, going down to our Harvard Business Review article, one great way, create that pause by breaking up those meetings. Task things differently. Create the opportunity for devil's advocacy. All sorts of options you can employ. Help you create a better strategy. Be a better leader. Better results. So, lots of information out there on cognitive biases. We have barely scratched the surface, but hopefully this has provided you some insights into how you can maybe improve some of your decision-making strategies, giving you better corporate and business strategies as well. So, that's our content for the week. Thank you as always for watching. Have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you next time.